Alright, look, so I've been pretty hesitant to say this out loud, but after this past season, I think it's finally safe to call it. I genuinely think that Windbreaker has the potential to become the anime of an entire generation.
I'm mad!
Alright, just calm down, just give me a second, just wait a minute. When it arrived last year, Windbreaker didn't just burst out onto the scene. It roundhouse kicked the doors clean off their hinges and asked what are you gonna do about it, before promptly offering to renovate the entire house free of charge. But even as amazing and as gorgeous as its many fight scenes are, and seriously, this might be the best hand-to-hand fight choreography I've seen in a new show, it has got so much more going for it that's deserving of praise. Like many of you, I imagine, I went into this show fully expecting to be served the good old-fashioned Delinquent anime package. Rebellion, bad attitudes, and the ever-important fisticuffs. And to be fair, it does indeed have those things, but it takes it all in such a unique direction, wasting virtually no time in making it clear that this ain't your daddy's Yankee anime. A Yu Yu Hakusho, this is not. And thank Kami for that. Don't get me wrong, I love me a Yu Yu Hakusho as much as the next weeb, but Windbreaker manages to do it all while simultaneously being the most positive and wholesome social rebellion anime this side of GTO. This is the bold and subversive take on the genre I didn't know I needed, and its message does an exceptionally good job at addressing some pretty deep and personal topics shockingly well, at least in my opinion. I mean, look, with all the different voices and podcast bros out there telling people what they are and aren't allowed to be,
Real men's fixed car.
I don't know how to fix car.
You can't fix no
I
car.
don't have a car.
I am a car. I'm gonna drive off right now. Whee!
Alright, we're gonna go into an ad.
Sakura and Furin's story about community, self-expression, and acceptance feels like the first breath of fresh air after a full day at an indoor-only anime convention. A big part of the reason why I feel it works so well is because of the way both we, the audience, and our MC Sakura both get to share the experience of having our expectations sidestepped together in real time. This is something I spoke about in another video, but it got banished to the copyright shadow realm, so I don't think too many of you will mind the review session. Basically, by keeping the dynamic of Furin a mystery to both we, the audience, and our Tsundere King himself, we both get to share the impact of the realization once we find out that they're actually just the most violent Big Brother program you've ever seen. Even better, this isn't just an episode 1 gimmick either. We get to observe Sakura slowly reevaluate what it means to be top dog over the course of the show as he continuously adapts and evolves in response to this initial shock. We don't just move on from the impact, we actually get to see how the ripples it forms continues to reshape Sakura's worldview and goals. As entertaining as this is just an anime at the end of the day, I was really taken aback by how much of this show can easily be translated to all sorts of real-life situations and attitudes. There's a heavy emphasis on the characters and their relationships and interactions, to the point where oftentimes it feels like the fighting's only there as an elaborate way to trick you into a therapy session.
Jingle, pay attention, I said your favorite word, the backrooms.
The show starts off with a great example of this kind of character writing with what I think is a really interesting and creative way of illustrating Sakura's mindset going into the events of the story. In his mind, trying to live and fit into society feels much like walking a tightrope blindfolded and with no safeties. As poetic as this all is, there's narrative purpose to this scene as well. The act of walking the tightrope itself shows us how much effort it takes him just to keep putting one foot in front of the other, while his blindness conveys that he's got nothing and no one there to guide his way for him. His lack of safeties reflects his lack of any real support system to rely on. One screw-up is all it would take for it to all come apart for him, and he doesn't even seem to get a break from the pressure in his sleep. Going further, considering the way this scene ends, we can also probably assume that he's already messed up in a major way somehow prior to the events of the show, which likely led to him winding up at Furin. As an anime only, we don't have much more to his backstory than this just yet, but what little we do get seems to suggest that he's been completely ostracized from his former community and has decided to cope with it all by embracing this supervillain origin story he's got going on. So after graduating middle school, he finds his way down to the roughest, toughest, saltiest, spittoonest high school around to re-establish himself, the aforementioned Furin High. As one naturally does. Having been so thoroughly rejected by his community, the only way he seems to be able to relate or connect to others now is by fighting them. He was never given any recognition, so he had to take it forcefully by proving himself with his fists. This ends up being his main motivation for wanting to attend Fuden, a school notorious for its lawless and chaotic student body where nothing matters beyond your strength. Because of this upbringing, Sakura's developed really rigid beliefs about himself and the world he struggled to fit into, and comes off pretty close-minded at the start of the series. He's accepted his label as a no-good delinquent and is trying to lean in and play the part as best he can by becoming King Delinquent at the worst school he could find. Therein, however, lies the contradiction, because as I said earlier, Sakura's a big fat tsundere. Contrary to the image he tries to project, he's actually kind and considerate to others, including random strangers. And more than that, he's got an extremely accepting attitude towards most people. He's not doing all that to be some goody two-shoes though, no way. He just can't stand it when people do lame things. It's not like he cares about protecting the weak or something. Are you stupid? What? Yeah, right. See, the thing about Sakura is that despite his outward resignation to his role in society as an outcast, he wants more than anything to be able to connect with others. That's his whole reason for fighting at all, and again, why he came to Fuden. He desperately wants a place to belong, even if that place is among society's refuse. Without knowing exactly what kind of place Fuden truly is, however, he's clearly set himself up for disappointment. Or has he? It's a pretty common experience, I think, to have grown up with certain expectations or beliefs built up within you about your future by the adults around you, only to be bitch-slapped in the face by the reality that none of this works that way.
Nigga, did I just catch you wanting to be
Sweet Lord have mercy, my baby!
Typically when this happens, you tend to see two basic responses from most people. 1. Crash out. Or 2. Adapt and try to build the world you want to live in around you. This is what Umemiya is doing with Fuden, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself, so hold on to that thought. Back to Sakura. After saving her from some no-name thugs as his first act in his new town, Kotoha is the first person to really challenge his thinking by highlighting how, despite his genuinely impressive skills, this hyper-individualistic attitude he leads with is the one thing about him that'll make his dream of becoming king of the castle impossible. And when Hiragi and the rest of the Fuden upperclassmen show up, it becomes hard to deny that she's got a solid point. Now that the big secret's been revealed and we learn that Fuden isn't quite the place we were all promised, Sakura's gotta choose. Stick to the original plan of becoming best of the worst, or join the most badass neighborhood watch you've ever seen. In the end, he kinda chooses both actually, but now that he's seen what the top dog at Fuden was capable of in bringing all the rowdy rough boys in line, he starts asking the questions that help push him forwards onto this path of transformation he's found himself on by chance. After witnessing Fuden's strength and cohesion as a united force a little while later, he's forced to admit to himself that the position of HNIC is presently beyond his reach. That said, his actions show that all is far from lost. It's worth noting here that the upperclassmen see right through Sakura's tough guy act immediately upon encountering him. In a sense, his plan of earning respect by going a few rounds in Fuden Ranked ends up working almost too well. With as foreign as all this kumbaya energy is to him, Sakura is pretty apprehensive at first, but at the end of the day, this is all he's ever truly wanted, so as awkward as it feels to receive it all without working for it the way he was expecting to, being a part of a community is a hell of a lot nicer than the treatment he's used to, as unwilling as he is to admit it. That inner conflict isn't just good for some comedic value though. He's also still stuck on his plan for school-wide domination, and to that end, switches gears to focusing on what Fuden and its students are actually like and how they really operate. And after witnessing just how devoted they are to their current head honcho, it's quickly time to check out his competition. And this is where the show starts to take things in a really interesting direction. Ever heard the phrase, "It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a time of war"? Well, Umemiya is that warrior in the garden. He's undoubtedly got hands, but he'd rather use them to nurture those around him instead. His pride and passion for his plants is an exact parallel to the way he views the students of Fuden. He's carefully and meticulously cultivating these kids into pillars of their larger community. He is literally the final boss of green flags. Of course, however, that alone isn't enough to earn the total and unconditional obedience from an entire school of YNs. His actual secret sauce, the thing that separates him from the rest of this show's cast, is in the way that he manages to accept and validate the experiences and emotions of everyone he seemingly comes into contact with. He gives everyone, even the people he disagrees with, the space and freedom to express themselves authentically, and in doing so, has built an entire community built off of that freedom. And by integrating themselves into the town, he's able to expand that community beyond the walls of Fuden. In fact, it might be more accurate to say that he's creating this environment within the school explicitly for the sake of preserving the culture and lifestyle of their wider town, so that the townspeople can have and provide that space to freely be for themselves and for each other as well. By contrast, Shishitoren and then later Keel in Season 2 embody more of that crash-out approach I mentioned earlier. The former actually admires what Umemiya has built, but isn't interested in putting in any of the work that he has in order to get it. Shishitoren's leader Tomiyama desperately wants to enjoy the bright and uplifting atmosphere of Fuden, but despite being a leader himself, he isn't experiencing a similar vibe with his own crew. Instead of uplifting one another the way the Fuden kids do, Tomiyama instead gets rid of any and everyone that doesn't naturally fit into his ideal, casually discarding and excluding members whose strength falls beneath his standard. He's obsessed with the feeling of freedom that surrounds Fuden and sees it as a kind of reward for strength, which is why he's so quick to discard his own teammates who come up short in that regard. He's so self-centered that he completely misses that the environment that he once had and is now chasing after came purely as a result of the group and not out of the efforts of one single person. Freedom isn't something you happen to stumble into, it's something you have to create and that you have to give in order to experience. On the other hand, Fuden's entire clash with them is solely for the sake of sticking up for and defending one of their own. They willingly go deep into enemy territory in order to protect the lifestyle they and the rest of the townspeople enjoy. And this is where we get some of our first signs of Sakura's transformation as well, as he reflects to himself how nice it feels to fight for someone other than himself for a change. As he begins to follow Umemiya's lead and guidance, the similarities between the two become much more apparent, and he slowly shifts away from wanting to take the throne at Fuden to becoming worthy of being placed on it by everyone around it. It's this subtle shift in attitude that lets him break through to their second-in-command Togame, which allows the two of them to converse as Umemiya encourages, showing Sakura a new way to connect to others instead of simply seeking validation through domination. And it's Umemiya's unconditional acceptance that allows him to break through to Tomiyama, ultimately ending the conflict between them. Before you know it, they've gone from breaking bones to breaking bread. Seriously though, this could be a Food Wars spin-off with the way these guys are always in a plate of food. It serves a really important purpose, however, when you understand what mealtimes mean within the context of a story. To put it simply, no meal means I hate you, a meal left incomplete often means tension within a group, but a meal shared to completion means I love you.
Pause.
In literature, media, and many cultures around the world, honestly, food is about more than just having a meal. It symbolizes cultural identity and unity. Every time Fuden prepares for a big showdown, they always make sure to come together for a meal both beforehand and after to reaffirm their shared sense of community. This is why Umemiya's got a seemingly endless appetite. He lives and breathes for the people, and in sharing a meal with the Shishitoren guys, he's able to extend that sense of unity towards them while sharing with both Tomiyama and Sakura what it really means to sit at the top, and that the spot is only as valuable as what you do with it, as well as the people around to enjoy it with you. If Shishitoren represents a lost or misguided Fuden, Keel by comparison is the anti-Fuden, where Fuden's culture and structure relies on mutual aid and support to help push each other upwards and forwards. Keel, well, they've got more of a tough love approach. Instead of feeding into one another, they do the complete opposite by taking from each other, with members being required to meet regular quotas or face punishment otherwise. And where Fuden is a place for its students to be free, members of Keel are essentially being held prisoner by the group and exist cut off from their friends and family. They've got open contempt for the way that Fuden sees things, and it's enough to provoke Sakura to fall back into his old habits of trying to solve all his problems the Sungjin Wu way. Since he's actually got people to rely on now though, he's able to regain the plot with some slight prodding and is able to get back to elevating the needs of his group over his own. Where the first season of Windbreaker was about shattering Sakura's worldview, Season 2 is about how to go about adopting a new one, and his clash with Keel brings this tension to the forefront, where once he was comfortable with himself being his only priority, he's now finding himself freezing up at the sight of his new friends being hurt. This is another way in which he's coming closer to resembling Umemiya, thereby bringing him technically closer to his goal, but it also highlights his immense confusion with this new world he's trying to assimilate into, as well as his own insecurities that make it hard for him to do so. By itself, none of this is terribly new to this kind of show, but it does set the stage for a really profound moment once everything's said and done afterwards that really helps to elevate this show into a class all on its own. See, a lot of Delinquent and Delinquent adjacent shows like Windbreaker encourage similar themes of support and community, but their communities often feel a lot more insular. Joining the group in these shows is often more about asserting your own identity rather than uplifting the others around you. Just like Sakura at the beginning of the series, characters often wrap their sense of self-worth up into what it is they're able to do and view their identities through that lens. This is where Windbreaker sets itself apart. Sakura is apprehensive to accept the kindness and support of others because due to his experiences, he fears that his shortcomings will cost him that support once it becomes a burden to them. He's still beating himself up for mixing up his priorities in that fight with Keel several days after the fact, and he's understandably shaken up after running headfirst into his limitations. He has no idea how to accept the help he needs when to him, having limitations at all is a mark of inadequacy. It's then that he turns to his upperclassman Kaji for advice, and rather than feeding into Sakura's obsession with highlighting his strengths, he teaches him to do the total opposite by confronting and accepting his weaknesses. No matter how competent he tries to be, there will always be gaps in his ability. Even Umemiya constantly makes it clear that he can't do it all by himself and greatly emphasizes the fact that he's relying on the rest of the students to help preserve their community. It's in knowing and accepting what he can't do that will truly allow Sakura to assimilate into Furin and the larger town, because that will help him to identify those who can and to lean on them accordingly the way the leaders among his upperclassmen do. Kaji encourages him to find his self-worth not in his kill count, but in who he genuinely is as a person. And Umemiya follows up right after to encourage him to be that person to his fullest extent. The very next episode brings us back to that tightrope scene from episode 1. But instead of all the voices of his critics from his previous life, we hear Sakura's own thoughts as he reconsiders the way that he's lived his life up until now. Now that he's seen that there's more to life than what he's been used to, it's time to make that decision for real this time. Keep going down the path he's always been on and continue to carry the burden that comes with it, or take a leap of faith and a chance at something better. This is the exact moment where Sakura makes the conscious effort to truly accept the reality of what Furin is and allows himself to be welcomed by the group, flaws and all. He'd all but given up on being accepted by anyone and resigned himself to the constant pressure he was under, but now that he knows that it doesn't have to be that way, his worlds open up in ways that he couldn't imagine. I mean, ask yourself, if there was a place where you could be your full and authentic self without the weight of expectations, labels, or definitions to box you in, wouldn't you want to be there? I mean, I'm sure there's some of you that might still say no, but I'm willing to bet that at least a good chunk of you would say yes, if not the majority. Windbreaker not only encourages its viewers to find that place for themselves, but to be that place for others as well, and that's where a lot of the magic in this series is. This all helps to make the next stage of the story all the more interesting, because the introduction of Endo and the rest of the students that left Furin during Umemiya's French Revolution arc represent the Furin that Sakura was originally hoping to attend, holding all the same values that he's just recently learned to abandon. The interaction between these two groups is sure to lead to some interesting developments with Sakura's character, as well as with the rest of the cast. Also fighting. Lots of fighting.
Jingle, jingle.
Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I really enjoyed this last season, even more than I was expecting to, and my expectations were pretty high already. The absolute tsunami that is the summer anime season is finally upon us, but before I talk about any of those shows, I really wanted to get this off my chest because this show is just doing so many things right. As for what's next, I think it's time to get real weird with it. See you next time. Peace.